Hey everyone, I hope you are having an amazing start to the week. I am excited for these two lessons this week. They are very timely. We are actually about to start learning about the immune system. So go ahead and set up your notebook. We are on topic 6.3, which IB calls defense against disease. That is a fancy way of saying the immune system. This is our first day of the immune system. We'll probably do the immune system for a while. So go ahead and set up your notes. And then in your notes, I want you to actually do this, please, if you are watching this video, because it really helps y'all engage with the material. But make a list, just short scrap paper list of all the ways or things that you can think of that your body uses to protect against disease. So go ahead, pause this video and make that list for me, and then meet me back here. Okay, let's keep going. I hope you made a list of some things that the body uses to protect against disease. I am going to, this week, we're doing 2 lessons on the immune system, and we're going to talk about our body's first, second, and third lines of defense against disease. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Are your guiding questions? First of all, because I feel like it's not necessarily helpful for me to talk about the immune system without talking about the current world that we're living in. We're going to talk about how exactly the virus COVID-19 works. And then I also want you to know by the end of today, what are some of our body's first defenses against disease? That's what you need to know today. Why this matters, we're on topic 6 out of 6. And then you definitely could come up with why this matters in life at this point in time. Why is it important to protect against disease? And then my joke for today, me sneezes, why am I sneezing so much? My immune system overreacting to tree pollen. Just trying to find a little humor in the craziness that is right now. So, first of all, let's talk about COVID-19 for a minute, or coronavirus. The reason I'm calling it COVID-19 is because that's what the World Health Organization, the CDC, call it, and because there are way more than just one coronavirus. Coronaviruses have caused lots of regular common colds, respiratory infections, and some other recent infectious diseases, including SARS, which happened in 2002 and 2003, and MERS, which was in 2012, are also coronaviruses. So COVID-19 is the virus that is currently causing the global pandemic. So as a general, what word am I looking for? Disclaimer. This unit is focused on how our immune system functions, not necessarily how diseases function. But I know that this is a really timely topic, and I think it's important for y'all to understand how COVID-19 actually works, so that you can be an informed citizen and so that you can call out misinformation when you see it. So you can watch this short video, Coronavirus Explained. It's about a week old. It's one of the most recent ones I could find. It's from Australia, that explains how the actual coronavirus works and how it attaches to your respiratory cells and replicates in the body. And it also talks about some of the ways that scientists hope that we can create vaccines and treatments against this COVID-19 coronavirus. This video, however, my other disclaimer, does not cover everything. So please, if you have more questions after seeing this video about COVID-19 or about how to protect yourself, I know that a lot of your teachers are doing a lot of really cool stuff to help you figure out how to protect yourself. But if you have any questions, please just let me know. We can talk about them at office hours, or do your own research to find info. And if you see something that you're not sure if it's true or not, try and see if it's a respectable source. And if not, send it my way and I can give you some help on that. So go watch that video on COVID-19 and then come meet me back here. And we're going to start talking about the actual functioning of the immune system rather than functioning of disease. Okay. So this is where we are going to start our notes for today. So what is our first line of defense against disease? If you look at these 2 pictures, you should get an idea of what our first line of defense is. What is this picture showing you? It is showing you skin. So our first line of defense against infectious diseases are the surface barriers that prevent the entry of pathogens into the body. So those surface barriers are the skin and then what we call mucous membranes. Mucous membranes are anything that kind of protects open cavities to the body. So that would be the lips, the mouth, your inner ear canals, your nasal passages. Those are mucous membranes. But a lot of people don't realize this, but your skin is your largest organ and it is one of your most important organs of your immune system because it protects you from pathogens being able to enter your body and cause disease. So we're going to take some notes on the skin and mucous membranes now. So when we're talking about skin, like what does the skin do? It protects the external structures when intact. That's important. When your skin is not intact, meaning you have a cut, that's a really, really easy way for pathogens to enter the body. So we're going to actually talk a lot about how the body protects you when you get a cut today. But skin is going to protect the external structures when it's intact. And external structures, I mean your outer body areas. It consists of a dry, thick, and tough outer region composed predominantly of dead surface cells. That's basically all the skin here. All the skin that you think of as skin. I know you're like, oh, my skin's not dry, but it's dry compared to the inside of your body. And it's thick and it's tough and it can protect us against disease, and it's primarily dead cells on the surface of that skin. And also, interestingly, which you guys might realize, might not, your skin has biochemical defense agents. So if you think about your sebaceous glands are anything that sweats, basically. Your sebaceous glands secrete chemicals and enzymes that help to inhibit microbe growth on your skin. And your skin is actually slightly acidic. You secrete lactic acid and fatty acids to lower the pH. So your skin pH is roughly about 5.6 to 6.4, depending on the region of the body. So your skin is actively trying to protect you all the time, which is pretty cool. So get some notes on the skin. This is your first line of defense as a reminder. And now we're going to talk about mucous membranes with this beautiful picture of a nasal passage. So mucous membranes protect internal structures. These are membranes, like I said earlier, the lips, the gums, your nasal passage, your inner ears, etc. And they are going to protect externally accessible cavities and tubes. And that sounds like, what is an externally accessible cavity? Your mouth, right? So your mouth is a cavity to the inside of your body, and it is externally accessible. It is open to the external environment. And so that's what it's talking about. The trachea is where oxygen passes through into your lungs. Your esophagus is what food goes down. And then your urethra is also an externally accessible cavity. And your mucous membranes consist of a thin region of living surface cells. So that's kind of the difference between the skin and the mucous membrane, is your mucous membrane is all living surface cells. And a lot of those surface cells are going to release fluids that help to wash away pathogens. So for example, mucus, saliva, tears, etc. And the mucous membranes also contain biochemical defense agents. A lot of the secretions from your saliva to your tears, they are going to contain this enzyme called lysozyme, which can destroy cell walls and cause cell lysis. That is going to be really helpful for bacteria. If lysozyme latches onto a bacteria, it can destroy the cell wall and basically cause that bacteria cell to explode, so then it can't infect you. If you remember the differences between bacteria and viruses are not necessarily alive. So viruses do not have a cell wall. Viruses are literally just a enclosed strand of RNA or DNA. And so lysozyme will not be as effective on a virus. And mucous membranes also may be ciliated, meaning they have really small hairs, which is why I use this picture with the nasal passages, because you can see those little nose hairs. And cilia actually help to remove pathogens. I always think of the Osmosis Jones scene where they're trying to like grab onto the nose hairs. I know it's kind of gross, but cilia can, if the cilia in your nasal passage, if a pathogen lands on that, oftentimes your body is going to react with, the cilia is going to try and flush it down out of the nasal passage, but your body also reacts by physically coughing or sneezing. because it senses that pathogen has attached to that little tiny hair on the inside of your nasal passage, and you sneeze to expel it. So that's all you need to know for mucous membranes. So, I mentioned this earlier. We know that our skin is an extremely important first line of defense when our skin is intact. But what happens when it's not intact? Like when you get a cut, when you scrape your knee, when you get a paper cut, what happens? And this is where the importance of blood clotting comes in. We talked a little bit about blood clotting when we talked about the blood system, but blood clotting is extremely important to your immune response. So blood clotting, which is also called hemostasis, is the mechanism by which broken blood vessels are repaired when damaged. This bullet point you probably already know. You already know that blood clots when you get a paper cut so that you don't bleed out, right? So the whole point of clotting is to prevent blood loss from the body. It also not only is to prevent blood loss, but it's also to limit pathogenic access to the bloodstream when the skin is broken. So the whole idea of a blood clot is not only to keep the blood inside, but to keep pathogens outside. So, how does blood clotting work? There are two main components to a blood clot, and you've learned a little bit already because I taught you about platelets in the last unit. These units are really going to connect, which is really nice. Not unit, sorry, lesson last week. But there are two main components you need to know. You need to know about platelets, and you need to know about fibrin strands. And when I say insoluble fibrin strands, that just means that they are not soluble in the plasma solution of the blood. They are going to turn into physical protein strands, essentially. Platelets are going to, when there is a cut, they're going to undergo a structural change, which causes them to become activated. And I'm going to show you a picture of what an inactive versus an active platelet looks like. It's pretty interesting. And they basically form a plug. They form a sticky plug. They go to the damaged region and they plug up the broken blood vessel so that you don't bleed out. That is what we call primary blood clotting or primary hemostasis. And then the secondary thing that happens is the fibrin strands basically form like a mesh of fibers, basically forming like a spider web to trap the blood cells at the site of damage. And that's where your body can start to repair that broken blood vessel. And that's secondary hemostasis. Here are some pictures, which I really think are awesome. These are from an electron microscope. So here is a resting platelet, or a platelet that's not active, not actively reacting to a broken blood vessel. And then this is an activated platelet. So you can see how these would probably be a lot stickier and create a much stronger plug when you have a cut. And then these are fibrin strands that are forming around those platelets to basically start to heal that broken blood vessel. So it is important for you to know kind of the steps in the order in which blood clots. It's good to know, it's good information, and it is called the coagulation cascade. There are 7 steps. And so I didn't put them all on one slide. They're going to be on 2 slides. This is the first of 2, but I'm going to get rid of me so that you can see. So the process by which blood clots is a very complex set of reactions, but it's called the coagulation cascade. If you think about the word coagulate, if you don't know what it means, coagulate kind of is like to come together, to stick together. So if you can just remember coagulate is like to stick together, then you'll remember this is about like blood clotting and sticking together. And these are the main events. So first, the damaged cell. So let's say you get a paper cut. The damaged cells from that paper cut are going to release what we call clotting factors to tell the body like, hey, over here we need a bodily response. So that's the first injury or damage. And then secondly, those clotting factors cause the platelets to shift from their inactive to their active form, and those platelets are going to rush to the site of the damage and form that plug. And then thirdly, those clotting factors also initiate local vasoconstriction, which is a really fancy word, but you guys can figure this out. Vaso, that prefix is vessel, and then constriction, constriction is to constrict. So vasoconstriction constriction is literally just kind of shrinking that blood vessel. And the whole point of shrinking that blood vessel is just to slow down the blood flow through that damaged region so that you prevent blood loss. So those are the first 3 steps. And then step 4, what's going to happen is the clotting factors are going to trigger a conversion of this inactive enzyme that we call prothrombin. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to say. Prothrombin. That's the inactive form, and it's going to cause it to shift into its activated form, thrombin. Thrombin then catalyzes the conversion of the soluble plasma protein fibrinogen into an insoluble fibrous form called fibrin. So all this is like, I know it sounds like a little bit crazy, but if you just think critically about what it's doing, it starts to make a little bit of sense. There's no reason for your body to always have an activated enzyme of thrombin going around your blood system, because that could cause blood clots in places that you don't need a blood clot. So that's why we have that inactive enzyme. So you have the inactive enzyme prothrombin all in your plasma. And then when you get an injury or a damage, that injury, those injured cells release kind of the trigger to tell the body, hey, over here, I need thrombin now, because thrombin will go to the site and then it's going to cause another protein that we call fibrinogen, and that protein is normally dissolved in the plasma, and we learned about plasma last class. And so that plasma is the liquid part of your blood. It's dissolved everywhere in your body, but again, we would not want it to be activated all the time, because if it's activated all the time, we're gonna get blood clots everywhere, which we don't want. So then that thrombin tells the soluble or the dissolved fibrinogen, hey, you need to convert so that we can fix this leaky faucet over here. And so then that fibrinogen is going to convert into an insoluble form, meaning it's not going to be dissolved in the liquid, called fibrin. Those fibrin strands are going to create a mesh of fibers around the platelet plug, and it's going to trap blood cells to form a temporary clot. And then once the damaged region is completely repaired, there's another enzyme called plasmin that will activate to dissolve the clot. That coagulation cascade is a lot, but hopefully if you just start to think about it like using this kind of picture, it does really make intuitive sense. And then here is a crazy picture, but it's a really great picture that shows the coagulation cascade. So we have that damaged blood vessel that released those clotting factors. And then the clotting factors activated the platelets. So the platelets got sticky and went into the plug. The clotting factors cause this prothrombin to convert into the activated form, which is thrombin, and then that thrombin caused the inactive form of fibrinogen, which is usually dissolved in the plasma, to become something that is solid and not dissolved, fibrin, and form all those fibrin strands. So this is a really good picture that shows exactly the steps of the coagulation cascade. Sneeze, and I didn't want you guys all to hear me, but it shows the coagulation cascade, and it shows it kind of step by step. And down here, it also talks about the vasoconstriction that happens. Okay, so if you need to draw this picture, you can, but you don't have to. It's just some people are much more visual than words. Okay, so now we are going to talk about, so what happens during a heart attack part 2. You already kind of talked about what happens during a heart attack in our last lesson, and we talked about it through the lens of the circulatory system and the inability of the SA node to act as that pacemaker. But now we're going to explore it through a different lens, through this knowledge of blood clots and the actual way that blood creates a clot. So blood clotting is normally a good thing. It helps defend our body against invaders and helps us prevent that blood loss. But it can be really deadly when they happen in the heart or the lungs or in other places. So this is a picture of what a blood clot might look like. But basically, all you need to do today, because I know it was a little bit of notes, you are going to watch the heart attack video and complete the Google form worksheet. So you're going to watch this video on what happens during a heart attack, and then as you watch, I want you to answer the questions on the Google form worksheet, and that's all I need you to do for today. And with that, log on to office hours this week to ask questions and say hello. I really miss y'all. I hope everyone's doing well and hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. If you still haven't reached out, please jump into office hours and say hello. But I hope y'all have an awesome, wonderful, fabulous day. See y'all for lesson 2.